Welcome to this video that demonstrates derived fields. This is a new feature of Recollector that was added in March of 2021, and I'm going to quickly show you what these things are and how you use them. They are similar to formulas in spreadsheets, so most of you are probably familiar with that. But let me show you. You create these new derived fields the same way you create or modify existing fields through this Modify Fields dialog. But now there's a new button at the bottom called Add a Derived Field. Now a derived field is computed on the fly via a formula from the existing data in other fields. If you go into the editor, you will not see your derived fields there because they don't have any data of their own. They're just the results of computations. They only work with numeric, and that includes currency and dimension as well as number fields and date fields. So I'm going to start out with numeric currency fields. I have in this particular collection, this is a collection of antique maps of Greenland. I have several cost fields. One is a price I paid for the item, and the other is a conservation cost, how much I spent for additional conservation. I don't have a total cost field. I'd like the program to compute it for me. So I'm going to add a derived field called total cost, and it will be the sum of the price, so that plus conservation costs. Add that in. And there's my formula. This $ curly bracket notation, that's just the notation that Recollector uses to identify fields that are used in its formulas. So click OK again. And now you'll see in the list here, I have a new field, total cost. And it is just the sum of price plus conservation costs. Most of my maps did not have any conservation work, so there's an implicit 0 value there. But here on the third one, you'll see there is conservation cost, and you can verify that total cost is the sum of those two. Let's make another one. Let's make one that shows the difference between the current value of the item and what my costs were acquiring it. And let's call that one gain loss. And I have a valuation column. You may have noticed it there before. So we'll start with that. We'll add that in. But now we'll subtract from the valuation the price. And let's also subtract any conservation, any conservation costs. So valuation minus price minus conservation costs. That's my gain or loss. Okay, okay. And now we have yet another field. These fields are fully like other fields in terms of their ability to be used when searching, when sorting, when subsetting, when creating field profiles. They show up in reports. They show up when you export to the Recollector app. The only thing different about them from the other fields is that you don't enter the data for them yourselves. You just let the program compute the values. Let's sort by gain or loss here. And so now it goes from negative up through positive. So that shows that. Let's switch now to using dates in derived fields. And I'll do two examples of that. Let's go back to Modify Fields. I'm going to remove those two that I just created just to leave space on the screen for showing the next ones that I'm going to do. I'm going to add a derived field that shows how long the item has been in my collection. And I can do that using one of these special buttons down here, the Now date. If I click that, it's really like putting in the value of a field whose value is today. So I want to know the difference between today and the date I acquired the item. So now minus the date I acquired the item. That's how long this has been in the collection. So I'll say how long had. Give it a name, say OK. And now we see this how long had. It's computed a duration, which it displays in terms of years and days. And, you know, it's kind of self-explanatory. The words here, years and days, are English words, but in the preferences you can change it. So if you are in France and you want to use an and jour rather than years and days, you can specify that for your collection. Let's show another use of date arithmetic. Notice I have a valuation date. Suppose I have a policy of wanting to reassess the value of items annually. So I want to compute when is my next valuation due for each item. So let's go and make a derived variable that does that. Add a derived field, and we'll say assessment due. And it will be due when it was last assessed plus, and now I need to add the 1 year, and all the computations for dates in the program are by days. So I'm going to add 365. That's when the assessment is due to happen next. So let's think OK and OK. And here we have the dates when the assessment is due. I can sort by that, so I can have the ones that are due furthest into the future here, down at the bottom, and the ones that are due sooner in the past. Today is actually March 8th of 2021. So you can see that there's a bunch of these that are overdue because they're due, their assessment was due prior to March 8th, prior to today. We could actually do another form of a derivation that shows me how long is it until the assessment is due, or how long overdue is it. Let's show you how you would do that. I'll go to Modify Fields or Image Directory, and let's get rid of the How Long Held field, again to make space on this screen. Add a new derived field, and we're going to call this one, we'll call it, how long until due. Not a very, I could think up a better name, but let's do that for the moment. And what we want to do is we want to start with the same computation we just did, which was the valuation date plus 365. But now from that, I want to subtract today's date, because most of these assessment dues are in the future. So it'll be some number of days in the future. So let's subtract out now from that. And let's see how that works. Okay, okay, okay. Here we have it, how long until due. And you see most of the values are positive, but some of them in parentheses are negative. These are the ones that are overdue. So I might want to just focus on these to go and actually do my reassessments. Just to show you how these are kind of full-fledged fields and can be used in other ways, let's make a subset that just includes the ones that are overdue. I will manage subsets. I'll create a new subset, and I'll call it assessment overdue, and that will be true if how long until due is less than 0. These, because it's the number of days, and these ones in parentheses, these are really negative amounts of time. So let's add that to the subset, say OK, OK, and now let's switch to that subset, assessment overdue, and there we are. We're seeing just the items that need to be reassessed. One final feature in this I'll just very quickly show. You may have noticed on the derived fields dialog, there's this add image count. This is a way of just counting up how many images are associated with a particular item. And I'll just call it num images, and I'll just have the derivation be nothing more than this. And let's say OK and OK, and here it is on the right. Well, why is this useful? Well, for many people it won't, but imagine you're a coin collector and you expect to have an image of the front of the coin and the back of the coin. So you expect to have two images for every item. And let's say it's a large collection. You have hundreds and hundreds of items. And you may have, not gotten around to photographing one side or the other or both sides of a particular coin. Well, how can you find those items in the collection that need to be photographed and have their images added? Well, this is an easy way, because now, let's say I sort by this. Let's say I expected there to be at least two. I can see at the bottom of my sort list, there's, some items that only have one. And so I could then go and make sure I gather the needed photographs and add them to it. So that's really the summary I wanted to show you of this new derived field capability. It's available in both the latest Windows version and the latest Mac version of Recollector.